Hey everybody, so we've got a BenQ HT2050 here. It was sent in by a customer of my day job. This particular one was refurbished by BenQ, originally made in, I'm probably looking right past it, HT2050. Why don't I see the date? I don't see a date on there even though I'm probably staring at it. Oh, here we are, 2016. September. So it was probably refurbed shortly after that. So the projector itself is, we'll say 2017. So it's going to make it about 6 years old as of this video. Now it was sent in because the owner replaced the lamp because they were getting a lamp light, but then when they would fire it up, they'd get the lamp light again. So after some back and forth, we suspect it may be a color wheel index mark issue. So rather than take his chances, he figured he'd just send it in. So we're going to go through and troubleshoot it and see what we can find out. I'm going to try a slightly different camera thing here. Instead of mounting it on the tripod the whole time, there'll be some handheld shots, hopefully some close-up shots, kind of make things a little more detailed and slightly more interesting. I don't know, we'll see. The BenQ HT2050, 2150 are kind of the modern W1070s. They are a really good, slightly above entry-level option. They give you 2 HDMI ports, a USB power port, VGA and serial control. They even have a DSP inside so that you can extract audio if you wanted. I would still recommend using HDMI and a soundbar and or AVR. AVR would be the way to go. But in a pinch, you could do HDMI in and then analog audio out. So the first thing we're going to check, it's going to look at the lamp and the color wheel. We're going to have to take that screw out right here, and then that screw out right there. So let's do that. So these screws don't come out all the way. They're in little springs, they just kind of pop out. Do this without bumping the viewfinder, the screen on the side of the camera like I just did. Whap, whap. Alright, they're loose. Now let's take the cover off. Now, these are always a little tricky to pull up. You really just have to kind of go for it. The clips right here, once you get those screws out, they will pull up. It doesn't smell like anything bad, so that's good. Although I do notice that it had an exploded lamp. You can see all that. Pardon me, you can see all that glass, shiny glass bits. And I seem to recall the owner saying that they had an issue with that. So then we're going to remove the lamp. Let's unplug lamp connector. Good, they have that snug down. The owner did some pretty good troubleshooting, I gotta say. He probably could fix it, but this way he'll know for sure that it's working. This is where I think the issue is. I suspect it lost an index mark. Just gonna give it a little push, see if it feels stuck. Nope, not stuck. That's good. So the other thing we're gonna do, let's see if I can get that. Yeah. So I'm going to put that screwdriver in there to hold it. Then we're going to plug it in and we'll see if that color wheel spins. Now you can see it. I have my flashlight shining in there. So I'm going to press the power button and we should see that spin 3 times before we get the lamp warning. But I'll bet you it's once if it spins. Spun up. Fans came on. And I have a feeling it's going to stop any moment. And then I just got a lamp warning. But the wheel is still spinning, which is interesting. Oh, I think it just started to slow down. It's still spinning, interesting. Yeah, you can feel it. That's weird. I wonder if it's still trying to find the index mark or if it's just given up. Now to you guys it looks like it's not spinning, maybe. Let's see if I can go to a slightly lower. Nope. It's still spinning though. Kind of figured it would stop. Alright. Well, let's unplug it. And let's start taking it apart. Something rattling. Ah. Yep. That one doesn't want to come out. That's alright. We'll get it out. Last screw. Now let's get this off. There are clips right here. See it right there. So let me get under here. There we go. And same thing on this side. Yeah, it looks like, I think he went inside. I can't remember if he did, but seeing some of the scrape marks, it looks like somebody was inside, which is fine. That's kind of the point. There we are. Come on. There we are. Gotta make sure you bring the zoom all the way back so that it pulls the lens back, and then the last little clip, there we are, pops out. There's clips here. Oops, you can't see. A clip here and a clip here that grab there. Then we'll unplug the IR sensor, that guy. Now we should be able to lift the top off. It has some side clips. Just kind of gently push in. Not too much, you don't want to break it, but you'll feel it as you lift. It'll pop loose and then that whole thing just kind of comes off. Set that back there. There we go. It's inside. I have the scope set up for 1 volt at 2 milliseconds per division. That should be enough to check the color wheel. I do have to bypass the door switch, and unfortunately I seem to have lost my old door bypass screwdriver, so now I use a pair of tweezers. Seems to work just fine. I'm going to have to find another little flathead to use. So let's plug power in. Have our standby light, that's good. And then let's get a ground. That should be fine. And it's probably going to be the middle pin. I set to, yeah, ×1. It's probably going to be this middle pin, but we'll see. Let me just, my ground wire was a little loose. There we are. Alright, so power. Okay, so we're getting pulses. You see that? 120 hertz. That's what we should be getting. That color wheel is working. Ground, and then power. Yeah, power. So this is what we should see on the color wheel. That means the color wheel's spinning and that the index mark is picking it up. So something else is going on. If your color wheel checks out, if you put your scope on it and your color wheel checks out, then we probably need to start, well, not probably, we definitely need to start looking at the power supply and the ballast. Now, if you don't have a scope, let's see if we can check it with a DC voltmeter. Something else I just noticed, the system fan's not spinning. That fan's spinning. I assume the blower fan is spinning. Let's see if we have any voltage on the blower fan. Yep, 8 volts. We got any voltage of this one? Not there. Not there. I might not be able to get in there though. I might have to. Yeah, let me let's take this apart a little more. I don't think this fan not doing anything can cause this, but we will investigate and just make sure. Let me just get that back in here. Come on, there we are. So to get that top apart, we got to get this back panel off. So we'll take out the fine thread, the 2 fine thread screws that hold the HDMI ports in, and then we'll get a where's my 5? There's a 4. There it is. Get our M5 nut driver. We'll pop these guys off. Then I should be able to just fold this down, take it off, and take out the few screws in the top that are holding that metal shield on. Then we can get to the circuit board. Yeah, see, that just comes right down. I don't have to do anything fancy. And then, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, and as always, make sure your power's unplugged if you're using a screwdriver inside, for obvious reasons. There we are. Okay, so I have it, everything plugged in, top off. Let's see if we get anything on that fan. Now it's possible that the fan is just not used at this point. They do that, because I got nothing so far. So that's the stall warning, which is fine. But we have no power to that fan. Ground, we do have a stall there, so it is indicating a stall. Watch, if I spin it, you should see that number change. Nope. So it's not getting power in there at all. So either it's not calling for the fan, or that fan chip is bad, because the blower fan's running, as you can see, 8 volts, 7.8 going to it. We have ground, and then there's the stall. That's probably doing a PWM signal. we can actually verify that with the scope. And then we'll check the color wheel with the voltmeter too, so that I can show you guys if we can do that. So I think you can. Let's just get the scope set to 2 milliseconds. There we go. There's the blower fan PWM. That looks good. The exhaust fan PWM, 54 hertz, 92 hertz for the blower fan. So that's good to know. Now, to check your color wheel, with the PWM it was putting out, it looks like we're getting 0.5 volt DC. Now this particular meter I can measure hertz, so we should get about 120. So if your meter has frequency, you can check the color wheel that way. You should see 60 or 120 depending on how your projector works. But if you don't have hertz, just use DC, and it looks like your average color wheel should be about 0.5 volt. Now that's the PWM averaged out. If you see it go up to, let's see here, VCC, 1.8 volts in this case, you see that, that means it's probably not spinning. In fact, let's test that. So I'm going to go on the PWM output, we have 0.5, and now I'm going to unplug the color wheel. We should see that change. Okay, so it goes down. So we're getting 0.1 now. If we had that, that would mean that the color wheel's bad. So if I plug it back in, it goes back up to 0.5. So that's a good little test. If you get 0.5 volts on the PWM output of the color wheel's working. If you get 0.1, it's bad. So we've now verified that the color wheel is not the issue. We were able to check the index output right here, that pin, and that's where we got that 0.5 volts while it was running, and then 0.1 volt when it was off. We also noticed that this fan isn't spinning, the system fan, or DMD fan, because you can see it points at that heat sink down there to cool the DMD. We weren't getting any VCC on it, on this one, sorry. No VCC, but we were getting a fan lock circuit. So there's a chance this chip is bad, or it's possible the projector just hasn't turned the fan on yet. It may be dependent on the lamp igniting. So the old lamp exploded. We know that because we saw the glass inside, and also the customer told me that the old lamp had burst. Sometimes what will happen when those lamps burst is if the lamp is running and it bursts, it shorts out and then can damage the ballast. Now, the ballast is kind of made to handle short circuits, but not if they're quickly, instantly if it happens real fast, then it can damage things. And I don't know if you guys can make it out. There you can kind of see it better. But that right there, that's a lot of heat. The lamp assembly gets its cooling air blown in here, and then that air comes out through there into this area, and then this fan pulls it out. And that fan looks okay. The blades are nice and sharp. I noticed when fans get old and those blades get hot for a while, they kind of round themselves over and they stop moving enough air. So that probably has nothing to do with anything. It was definitely dirty. I'm finding evidence of dust, and I kind of think the customer said there was dust in it when they cleaned it out. So the next thing we have to do... Oh, wait a minute. I just saw something. I think I found the problem. Let's see if I can light it so you guys can see it. don't know if you guys can see that down there. The light in there. See that connector? That connector, I'm pretty sure, should have, where did it go? That thermal fuse. Oh man, this thing can't focus at all that far in. I don't think that thermal fuse is plugged in. That might be the whole problem. Depending on how this is set up, usually the thermal fuse will just kill the mains power entirely, but this mains fuse, or mains thermal fuse, might be interrupting the high voltage to the ballast. That would explain a lot. Let's move that off to the side. So I am highly suspicious of that connector being open. So let's take this out, and this out. That should be all of the main board screws. Yep. And then let's disconnect that, this speaker, exhaust fan, secondary exhaust fan, and over here the ballast control. I also unplugged that side of the color wheel because I really just want to flip this board over that way. I don't want to unplug everything. There's no reason for that. And then let's spin this around so that you guys can get a better view from this side. And we'll get some tweezers and see this wire. Yeah, that wire's not plugged in. It's kind of caught under the case. Needle nose. I'm probably going to have to take this metal. Yeah, let's just take this metal frame out, and I'm going to unplug the main board the rest of the way. I'll just go back over everything that was removed. I'm going to set the main board inside the metal carrier. We'll look at the main board before we put it back in, but I'm almost positive that once we plug that back in, it'll be okay. And that's cool. I was hoping to save this guy some money. It's great that the ballast is probably okay, and great that the color wheel is okay. Really, I just forgot to plug some wires back in, and you know what? That happens. I tell people all the time when they contact me that they'll say, oh, I cleaned my thing, replaced this and that, and now it won't do anything. So I said, go back over your work, and 9 times out of 10 you'll find something that you missed, like that right there. So here's our problem. That's supposed to be here. Let me just get a picture of this for him. Let's see, let's zoom in. And that's cool, because that means he probably did everything else okay. You know, and this happens. I've done it. I've done it plenty of times. It looks good. Just kind of giving this all a once over. I'm going to give you guys a quick tour of what's going on in here. So, main power comes in here. That little black round thing here, that's the fuse. It's a 6.3 amp. No. What does that say? 6.2 amp. Can't quite read it. 6.3 amp, yeah. So that's a 6.3 amp fuse. Then it goes through a thermistor to prevent the inrush current, to limit the inrush current. We got another thermistor back here. And we have some MOVs for surge protection. It's going to be going through this choke right here. And then of course this coil. Now these wires, that red and black wire. These go to the door switch, so in theory you could just jump this out and it would always think the door was closed. Then it goes to this bridge rectifier. This is a full bridge rectifier. Those who know what that is. If you watch Electro Boom, you know what I'm talking about. Then we go through we have another transformer here. And then there's the power factor control. That's these right here. These are for switching the power factor so that you get the high voltage that goes to the ballast. This is the MOSFET that controls the high voltage to the ballast. The low voltage is all rectified by that diode and then these capacitors. So we have AC, DC, DC high voltage, DC low voltage. Over here is the ballast. It's one of those micro ballasts. Same thing as a modern, normal ballast. They just crammed it all together. Have our control. Have a choke. The MOSFETs for ignition and power. You can see it's a 240 watt ballast by the little sticker there. Then we have the lamp output, those two white wires coming off the plug, and they go through to right there. And of course, the temperature fuse here, temperature breaker, these are auto resetting. Once they cool down enough, they click back closed again. But this is probably interrupting either the PFC turn on signal or the power good signal. So unless that is working, it's not going to let anything happen. So other than that, everything else looks fine. I think I'm going to throw it back together, or at least partly back together, and we'll see what happens. Let's put this frame back in. Make sure you don't catch any wires under it. Fan wires, color wheel wires, all that stuff. Never force anything. Make sure the low voltage pins come up through that hole. Make sure your ground wire comes up through there. Make sure these go around that ACN plug. And it should sit down nicely. Now on the optical assembly end, you do have to watch the color wheel wires. They do want to get themselves underneath and get in the way. So just pay attention to that. There's a pin right there that comes through. So I'm actually going to put that screw in first. Let's see, that one is, let's get our handheld driver here. I think that's going to be this one right here. Make sure I don't have, yeah, that should be this. Just got to make sure. Good. Alright, and then the ground screw. They always use those M4s with the star washer on it. The 4mm, not the 5.56 rifle M4. Now let's get these screws back in. Now these are helical plastic threads, so remember, go backwards until you feel it drop into the threads, and then just bring it down until it stops, and then just a tiny bit more. You don't want to strip it. There we go. And then the last one, slipped. Now sometimes there, I got it. Sometimes you can't find the threads even when you're spinning it backwards, like something just won't let it drop in. You can run them in a few times without causing any trouble, but every time you cut new threads, you stand the chance of making it worse. So just try not to. If you have to, you got to do what you got to do, but if you can help it, you'll be happier if you don't cut new threads all the time. Those are in, that's in, I think, yeah, we can pop the main board back in now and see. There's the main board. So the way the main board works, well, there's a lot going on here, but I'm going to give you the quick Reader's Digest version. Power comes in here. The power then is distributed to different points, but mostly over to this section where this chip is. This is the PMD 1000, real common power control IC used in a lot of DLP projectors. This also drives the color wheel and looks at the signal from the color wheel. If we were to trace all of this stuff here, these two, you can see the driver transistors here. If you were to follow their base, they go all the way back into here. I forget what pins they are, but you can look up PMD 1000 if you wanted to see what it does. Then, this is all low voltage control, so it'll output, I think, 1.8, 5, 1.2, and 3.3 volts for mainboard control stuff. So a lot of times this can be a problem. If you have some power on the main board, this is worth checking. The datasheet's readily available, so just look up PMD 1000, you'll find it. Then, let's see. So over here, we have more power stuff, which I believe is for the fans. I think this is where the power for the fans is derived. I could be wrong on that, but we definitely have some big inductors over here and some kind of big old power looking chip there, and you got some thick traces there. And they go, oh, this is the amp, my bad, audio amp. So these are, yeah, they're definitely inductors. I thought it was a power thing, but I mean, it is power, but not in the way, you know, I was originally thinking. But this is a relatively significant audio amplifier feeding that, so that's kind of cool. I mean, they're not, you know, hi-fi looking speakers, but for a projector, they're surprisingly robust looking. Then the video inputs. We have all the video inputs, HDMI, VGA, service port, and then power. The HDMI is interesting. Reminds me of a Sony. This HDMI 1 goes through this chip. And interestingly, I noticed there's an unpopulated HDMI port here. Now there's a 2150, I think, that has like an Android dongle that's plugged in on the inside of the projector. It normally sits here, would plug in. So that would be for that. I kind of wonder if I were to install one, if it could be enabled somehow. Just probably not. It probably needs different firmware, but it is interesting to see that the main board's basically the same. Then after that multiplexer, it goes into the main HDMI multiplexer, which is this chip. So that switches between 1 and 2, or if it was the 2150 or 2250, I forget. Maybe 3550. There's another BenQ, a couple models up, that has the Android thing built into it. So that would switch between those, and this switches between all that. Then you can see the data lines coming out of there. That's the output of the HDMI chip. You can see the input. It's pretty easy to see there. And after that comes out, you can see it drops through the board, but then it comes out and heads, let's see, I don't know if it's heading here or heading here first. It's possible it's heading here first, but it may just be going there because it's already digital at that point. I'm pretty sure this chip is for the VGA, because the VGA comes through some buffers, and then I see these traces here going to that chip. So it's possible that this is mostly for VGA, possibly for menu stuff, but I think that's all in here. This is like the main brain of everything. That's our ROM with the firmware. We can see it has the European model number on it, W1210ST, which this is the same as. So that's where all the software is saved. So I guess to make this the next model up that would use this HDMI port, we would have to reflash that ROM with the next level firmware. Then, a couple little things to point out. We have an isolated temperature sensor. They have this cut out here so that the heat from the PMD 1000 power stuff doesn't wick into the board. This just will measure the ambient temperature, which is a good spot to have it because it is near the power stuff. Then I guess we can look at the output of this DLP chip. I believe these use LVDS, low voltage differential, to feed through that connector down into the DMD controller. So that's really it. They've gotten a lot more simple over the years, no surprise. So let's put this back in, and then we'll get it plugged in to try it. Now when you plug this back in, you need to make sure you line up the pins for the low voltage. Now with this model it's a lot easier. They really make it pretty straightforward. Hopefully you can see that better now, the light underneath. So just make sure you're not shifted like that. You can see, and you really can't. Let me just dim that a little. Here we go. So you see there's one pin off, or you can go that way sort of too, and go one pin off the other way. It's kind of hard. The other screw holes won't line up. So just make sure it's straight, push it down, and make sure none of your other wires are caught underneath. And then let's give this a little. There we go. Push that down. Check that power one more time. So the DMD is plugged in. That's good. Let's put these two DMD screws back in. I'm going to put in all of the, oh, that's not for there. There needs to be the shorter one. Alright, so there's two sets of these types of screws. These like pan head, top hat, I don't know what you call cowboy hat screws. There's a shorter thread and a longer thread. So the shorter thread ones go in the brass DMD area. If you try to put the long ones in, you're going to have a bad time, so don't do that. Pay attention to your screw length. You may even want to mark them when you take them out. One thing I like to do sometimes, especially if it's a new device, I'll get a piece of cardboard and I will draw a little map of the layout of where I'm taking the screws out of and actually stick them in the cardboard. Next time I work on something that I've never worked on before, I'll do that and show you all. Alright, so that's all the screws except for the ones that hold this in, which is fine. I don't want to put those in yet. I do want to plug this stuff back in. I'll tell you what, the customer's going to be really happy. Because he was worried that, something else was wrong, and I was too. I wasn't really sure what was going on. There we go. Plug the color wheel back in. Remember, conductor side up. There we are. Blower fan. Now I don't really need to plug this right in. This is the IR control. The other side isn't connected to anything, but might as well, because it's one less wire to plug in later. And I'll set that, this little notch there. Then the system fan. I'll be curious to see if the system fan comes on after the lamp comes on. Alright, that's plugged in. And then lastly, the speakers. You don't really need the speakers plugged in for this type of testing, but it doesn't hurt. Alright, so now let's set Mr. Lamp in. There we go. Alright, spun around. Let's get my junk tweezers that we'll use for this. There we are. Okay, everything's plugged in. Standby light's good. That's bypassed, and we should see something any moment. Hey, I like that. There we are. Let's see if I can focus that HDMI one. Searching. Good, good, good. And then, where the heck is menu on this one? That's right, middle. There we, oops. Let's go. Menu. Where's test pattern? I think that's test pattern. There we are. There we are. Now there's a lot of light bleed from things. Like you can see all that up there. If I put my hand here, you can get a better idea. Of course, the source thing came up. And it made the test pattern more dim. Let's go back, turn test pattern on again. That extra, I guess the auto source thing is what's going on there. Firmware version is 1.01. That's good. Alright, so let's turn off the test pattern and let's see if the what we can see in the service menu. So to get into the service menu, it's you press menu and then source and OK. So it's menu and then source and OK at the same time. And we got those little boxes there. So box 1, there you go. Alright, so box 1, you can see there the language is set, the color wheel delay. This would be for adjusting your color wheel. Test pattern, we can bring up the test pattern if we want, but I'm not going to do that now. And then these features are off. So we could do a full factory reset, but I'm not going to do that. And then to back up, or to get out of it, you hit menu again. So to get back in, menu, that, and then box 2. Okay, we only have one temperature. That's weird. DMD fan isn't coming on at all. That's so weird. But it's not even set to come on, see? So it's set at 0, or it's seeing 0, and the target is 0. Can I adjust that? I can. I just turned that fan on. Interesting. Let's see, off. Wait, did that turn it on? No, it didn't. That was just what I... Oh, wait, no, there it goes. I'll show you guys. Okay, here's the DMD fan. So it's set at 0. So I just changed it to 10. 30. Here we go, and it turned on. Let's... Huh. $20. 10, 20, 30, 40, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Wow, if I don't hit it fast enough, it changes it back. Let me go to 80 and see what happens if we leave it at 80. Sets it back to 0. That is so weird. I wonder why that is. Well, I'm going to leave it alone. There must be something going on with the firmware that I'm not aware of. Let's see, if I hit enter, does it save? Nope. We'll see if it comes on. Hey, it goes back to 0. Very strange. Alright, well, I'm not going to worry about that then. There's obviously something going on that BenQ wants to happen here. So, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, if I go to 30, fan kicks on, and then watch, it switches back to 0. So, I don't know. But that's fine. Now, let's go over... Is this the error? Oh no, but this is some info. So the total hours on this projector are 3,236. Most recently, normal hours 34. Total lamp hours on this lamp are 1. That's interesting. So, go back up. Ah, this is the one I was looking for. Okay. So we have lamp fail 8 times. Lamp out speed error, these are fan speed errors. No failures. Power out speed error, that's the back fan on the right by the speaker. Then lamp blower fan had 3 errors, which would make sense because he had that lamp explode that threw some dust in it. So then we have an abnormal power down, probably similar cause. I'm going to reset these so that we have a fresh count, and I'm going to do that by holding left or right. There we go. Now they're all reset. Now these other screens are for burn-in tests. I don't usually need to do these, sometimes I do. This is color stuff. If you get really into setting your color correction on the projector, this is a good place to go. Always make notes of your original settings though, in case you get it too far out of whack. And then just a bunch of info on signal, but I don't have a signal in there, so we're not seeing anything. So let's get out of the menu. Normal menu is what we have, so I'm going to shut this down. Let's put it back together. Get that unplugged. Drain those capacitors. Take my little cheater tool out. Let me get this meter out of the way. I love this meter, but the wires tend to get themselves all over everything. Okay, so now we can start putting stuff on here. First thing I'll do is get that color wheel wire tucked in there, so that's out of the way. Now we'll put the shield, the RF shield back on. You got to be careful. You don't want to bend these. You want to make sure that anything that wraps around to act as shielding wraps around where it's supposed to. Then we can use our long fine thread. I don't know what you call those screws. I'm going to call them cowboy hat screws. I know that's not the name. If I happen to find the real name or remember it or anything, maybe I'll put it on the video. If not, you can just shout at the screen if you know what it is. I promise I hear you if you're shouting at the screen. Okay, that's in. Let's get that one down there. That goes there. This goes here. That goes there. Okay, those are in. That's good. Then, oh wow, there's glass all over the place, so I was just about to start putting this back on, and I noticed that. And not that this stuff can't be there, but it might get loose and then get stuck in a fan, so try to get it out. And it's kind of cool, you can see that this is just blanking off where there could be extra RCA plugs, and you You can even see it back there. I think the 2250, 2150 has that. But let's put this back on now. It should just essentially hinge back on like that. Feel your gaps, make sure they're smooth, nothing's, you know, out of place. Alright, first one. Oh, remember, it's the fine thread screws. You will have 2 coarse thread screws, helical threads. They're for the faceplate, the front. So don't put those back here, even though they'll kind of fit, sort of. And I'd like to, if I can, put all the screws the same direction. Just looks nicer. Then the 5mm connector fasteners. Sometimes you can start these with the nut driver, sometimes you can't. There we go. Sometimes I can't get them to grab the threads unless you push on them, so I'll get a small flathead or Phillips just that goes into the threaded section to get it started, because you can push in. There we go. And then the VGA. Actually, this works really well. This is a screwdriver that I ground down to make that weird point. Forget why I did that. I needed it for something, a specific use. And I just found it was kind of useful after that, so I kept it. Okay, those are all in and snug. Back is on. Now, let's look at the top. Before I put the top back on, I want to give it a good cleaning. It's not terrible, but I do notice it's got a lot of dust on it. And probably up on the ceiling for a while. Oh, this is where that dongle would sit if this was the Android enabled one. There'd be an HDMI cable, a little jumper that sits right here that plugs into the main board, and then the HDMI, looks kind of like an old Chromecast or a Miracast, would sit here. We got a little bit of dust there. It's not super dusty in here, it's just kind of dirty. I'm actually going to go use my brush and air compressor and just get some of this loose dust out, and then we'll wipe the top down. Much better. Just got all those little edges of dust out, which was nice. Then let's just get some cleaner. This is actually lens cleaner, but it works fine when the dirt's not too bad. This is just surface crud, so we'll get that off. I like using the lens cleaner when I can for this because it's not very aggressive, so I don't have to worry about it damaging plastic or, you know, pulling silk screen up or anything. Now, it doesn't really do as much for stuff like that, but that's okay, because the whole point is to kind of work your way up. You don't want to start hitting it with everything, just kind of see what it needs, and then you escalate as needed. So now that I got the majority of it, we'll use some rubbing alcohol right here, but I won't apply it directly to the plastic. I'm gonna just pour some on the towel here, and then just, yeah. Oh, buttons fell out, that's okay. Yeah, it's getting the crud out. Let's see, let's wipe these buttons down. Wait a minute, I lost the... There it is. Okay, I like that. Call that good. Now, slide this back together. I like that. Now we can put this top on. So to put the top on, you want to make sure that notch in the front lines up with where this wire is coming out. So I'll just set this on, and then we'll look at the front so you can see what I mean. See? You want it to be like that. Then just start. Give a little squeeze until you feel all that stuff drop in. You'll hear the clicks. Just check the gap. That looks good. Now, oh, piece of glass. I just found that. So this is good. I got all those out. Do have a little bit of dirt in the bottom here. Let's wipe that off. You know, for a refurb, it's not too bad. I've seen some terrible, terrible refurbed projectors, but this one's not too bad. Let's get some screws. Let's get these. Now for the bottom, the screws are these guys. These helical screws, about, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch, I guess, 3/8, something like that. So just like the other screws, you want to make sure you spin them backwards until you find the thread, and then run it forward. And again, if you don't find the threads, just try not to do it too much, because you can definitely cut some new threads a time or two, maybe even 4 or more times. I never really tested it, but it's just better if you can find those threads and use them. I'd be willing to bet the refurb techs don't bother. They probably just use their drill driver and run it in and out. I do like how they put the lamp type on the bottom. It's an Osram 240, 0.80, 20.9, 240 watt. Wait, was that? Yeah, that one's good. That one, that one, that one, and then this one. That makes sense, because then I should have 4 screws left that are for the top. There we go. And then we'll put the front plate on, and then we'll put the top plate. So this is going to go on next. You get my rag again and just wipe that out. Man, that was dirty. Yeah, this thing must have been relatively dirty when he first cleaned it. Did a good job, I got to say. Aside from missing that wire, which he probably would have found if he wouldn't have been frustrated, he would have been up and running. So, you know, I give him I mean, technically it didn't pass because it didn't work, but I'm still going to give him a passing grade because he got really close. So let's plug this back in, the front IR, and then we'll wrap the wire up. Come on, just to, there we go. And then to put this on, it's a little tricky. Again, bring the lens all the way back. Then once you get the bottom kind of down, we're gonna squeeze this top in. See, watch, ready? Like that. And that brings that in too, so that's good. And then the other side, like that. And then those are in. You can feel it. You can also see it too. There's no gap there. It's smooth, so you know that's in. And then I'm going to make sure the bottom's tight. You do see a little bit of a gap here. Oh, you can't see it. Right there. So I'm going to, there we are. There we are. They're in. Then we're going to put these screws in on the corner. Those screws. Those are the other tapered head screws. Oh, there we go. They have the helical thread. And then we have 2 screws in the top and the lamp door, and then it's good. Alright, I like that. Now this thing, I think we're going to try something with this. I've tried it before and had decent luck, so I think we'll try it again. I have a way to kind of get all that crap off and not destroy the stickiness, so you can kind of use this as if it were new again. I'll show you. Just using rubbing alcohol and some elbow grease. So all I'm really going to do is soften the adhesive up and just kind of work the crud off of it. You'll feel it. Just kind of wipe one direction with it. I like to go from the center out. I mean, you don't have to go all the same direction each time, but don't like do swirls, I guess. Yeah, see, once the alcohol starts to dry, then the paper sticks too much. So I'm actually going to cheat a little here, and we're just going to, there we go. Just pour some on it. And the nice thing about the rubbing alcohol is it'll dry, and then as long as you didn't go too aggressive, the adhesive will still work. There won't be as much, but there'll be enough. Okay, I like that. It's a lot cleaner. It's not perfect, but it's infinitely better than it was. And so that means we can put it right back on here. This way? Wait a minute. I forget. This way. Yeah. That little notch kind of goes there. That straddles the door switch pin, and you'll feel it. I mean, it'll stick down way better than when you pulled it up. There we are. Like that. Let's see, let's wipe the lamp cover down, and then we'll put this on. Oh yeah, it was dirty. Look at that. That was white. I like it. Oh, we got a little bit of dust right in here. Okay, I like that. Looks like we have a little bit of damage to the plastic. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you had some tape on it or something. There's like a... See that? Who knows? That doesn't matter. It doesn't affect operation. That's really all that matters. Let's put this on. backside first, and then push until it clicks. Then we, oh, too big. We just snug these down. Do not over tighten these. Just put them in a little bit. Maybe don't even tighten them all the way. Just go in and, I don't know, 2 or 3 turns just to keep it there and so they don't pop loose. But that's it. We should be good now. Let's plug her in. I'm going to need to adjust that. And let's see. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to drop you guys like that. Let's see what happens. Green light. Fans are not too noisy. Color wheel is happy. We have blue. Menu coming up, beautiful. Now the keystone is off obviously because it's not set up right, but you can see it will go straight. That's just the adjustments. I am not going to change his adjustments. I'm going to leave him. He can tweak them if he needs to, but I'm not going to change anything. At least the internal settings, the zoom and focus, you know, nothing you can do about that. I got to change that, but he obviously can set that back. So that's good. This is real good. So let's, let me see if I can turn it off now. No, I'm still booting up. So I just want to, we'll take this over to the other side, put a signal through it, see what it looks like, and then hopefully I can get it packed up and sent back to him tomorrow. Alright, let's fire it up, and then let's see what it looks like on the screen. We do have light, which is important. So let's see what it looks like on the screen. We have a picture. It won't fit on the screen, obviously. It's a little big, but the colors are vibrant. There's no blurring, like there's no motion blur. The keystone is definitely off, but again, that's because I am not set up in his home theater room. This 2150 should be closer to the wall, and then it would fit on that screen. So this is kind of a short throw, not an ultra short throw, but kind of a short throw. So I'm going to let this run for a while. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to run this test video. This is actually a channel I like. It's called Ringway Manchester. I'll put a link down in the description. Lewis has a real good channel. Lots of interesting radio stuff about number stations, portable radios, just kind of neat, interesting stuff. And his videos are always well researched and well produced. So if you don't subscribe to Ringway Manchester and you're into that kind of stuff, or even just find it interesting, you know, like the Russian buzzer UVB76 or whatever it's called now, he does stuff on that. All sorts of things, just a generally interesting channel. So go ahead and check him out. Again, I'll put a link down in the description. But otherwise, projector's working great. That missing plug, or the unplugged thermal breaker, was the issue. After that and a little bit of cleaning and checking, we're good to go. Hopefully you guys learned something about checking color wheels without a scope, and really just troubleshooting in general. That's always what you want to do, is troubleshoot. Don't load the parts cannon. Go and check your voltages, check your connections, check, and then you can save yourself some money. You now know how to check the color wheel and the fans if you don't have an oscilloscope. That can be really handy. I know not everyone has those kind of tools, so I try to help people figure out other ways to do tests that are good enough to get you close enough. I'd also like to give a shout out to JCB Diggers. Thank you for all your cool comments, and it was nice talking to you on Facebook. hopefully you enjoy this video. And I give a shout out to you and your wife. Hope you guys are enjoying it. And if you watch the video all the way through, you're hearing my shout out. Let me know down in the comments if you heard it. So for the rest of you, if you need a lamp assembly, check that link in the description. You can purchase the 5J.JEE05.001 through that link. You can use the coupon code down there too to save a few bucks. That works in a few models. I have the models listed in there. If you have questions about repairing your BenQ or a problem you're having, go ahead and stick it down there in the comments, or check the link for the Facebook group where you could also post your questions there, where a few other people aside from myself also participate, so you can probably get some good quality help that way. And if you got this far, I really appreciate it, and as always, thank you for watching.